But Rav makes the following comment to Rav Kana, and he says, "The avdis ahanis." However, if you will recite b'fanei nechtam, it is meaningful, it is beneficial and significant. So, my avdis ahanis, what benefit, what gain do we have that the shliach would say b'fanei nechtam? After all, Bavel, according to Rav, has the status of Eretz Yisrael. And the Gemara answers, the Asi Balu Ma'ar Lo Mishkachinen Be. Once we accept the Shliach to testify B'fanei Nechtam, then it's like two Eidim signed on a Kiyum Haget, Kiyum Hashtar. And therefore we have two Eidim to testify that there's no Ziyuf. And Lo Mishkachinen Be, we're not going to pay any attention to the claim of the Baal that this was all a forgery, because it's his word against two Eidim. Although there's only one Eid, the Shliach, but the Shliach is considered like two Eidim. So therefore, Rav advocates, or shall we say recommends, that Rav Kahana should try to be makpid and testify b'fanei nechtam, even though in Bavel, according to Rav, it's like Eretz Yisrael, but because we're going to gain the possibility that if down the line the Baal will be Ma'ar and say Mezuyaf, we now have a Kiyum built in. And that's because the Shliach testifies b'fanei nechtam. Kidisanya. Now the Gemara wants to bring a proof to support this position, that it's meaningful for the Shliach to say b'fanei nechtam, even when technically, according to strict letter law, he's not required to do so. Kidisanya Maisa b'yodem echad shevi get lifnei Rabbi Shmuel. Omar lo, this person says to Rabbi Shmuel, Tzarech ani lo b'fanei nechtam any tzarech. Omar lo, Rabbi Shmuel says, b'ni mehechanato. Where are you bringing the get from? From whence are you bringing the get? Omar lo, Rebbe, mikfar sisai ani. I come from a place called Kfar Sisai. Omar lo, tzarech ato lo b'fanei nechtam. You should be required to recite this Eidus of Fanei Nechtam Shel Tizakek Li Eidim, so that the woman would not have to run around trying to find Eidim to be Mekayim the get in event that the Baal is Ma'ar. Liachar Sheyotza, after this person who had asked Rabbi Shmuel this question, he got his answer. He walked out of the presence of Rabbi Shmuel, and who was waiting outside? It was Rabbi Eloi. And Rabbi Eloi overheard something, and it wasn't clear exactly what Rabbi Shmuel said. But in any event, Rabbi Eloi understood mistakenly that what Rabbi Shmuel had told this man was that he absolutely, critically must testify Fanei Nechtam, even though he's coming from Kfar Sisai. So Nichnas L'fan Rabbi Eloi. Rabbi Eloi comes in front of his Rebbe, Rabbi Shmuel. Amar lo, and he says to him, Rebbe, how could you possibly require Fanei Nechtam on a get that's being brought from Kfar Sisai? Hello, Kfar Sisai muvlas b'tchum Eretz Yisrael ukrovo l'tzipori Yosef Yaakov. Kfar Sisai is located in close proximity to Tzipori, even more than Akko is close to Tzipori. So the main focus of the settlement of Israel, of Bnei Yisrael at that time, the Yishuv of Eretz Yisrael was in that city called Tzipori, and Akko was close to Tzipori, but Kfar Sisai was even closer. It was Muvlos B'tchum Eretz Yisrael. Utnana, we learned in our Mishnah, Rebbe Omer, Akko ke'eretz Yisrael Gittin, that in the case of Akko, Rabbi Meir paskins that it has the status of Eretz Yisrael, and Kal V'chomer Kfar Sisai, which is closer to Eretz Yisrael, would have to have the status. So you'll tell me, okay, but we don't paskin, we don't accept Rabbi Meir. Says the Gemara, Afilu Rabbanu lo pligi aled Rabbi Shmuel al bi'Akko d'merchakma. The reason why the Chachamim rejected Rabbi Meir and they require Fanei Nechtam in a get that comes from Akko is because Akko is a little bit distant from the end of the settlement in Eretz Yisrael. And therefore the Chachamim disagreed with Rabbi Meir, and they attached the status of Chutzlarts to Akko. Avol Kfar Sisai de Mekarva, but Kfar Sisai is close to Tzipori, and therefore, the Rabbanan would agree that Kfar Sisai has the status of Eretz Yisrael, and you don't require Fanei Nechtam. Now, Rabbi Shmuel thought in his mind that Rabbi Eloi was making the following statement, that in Eretz Yisrael, where they did not require Fanei Nechtam, then Fanei Nechtam doesn't add anything. As if to say that even if the Baal would come along and be ma'arer on the get, the testimony of the Shliach would be meaningless, which would mean that we need to aid them to be Makayim the get, which has tremendous repercussions in terms of the ability and the license for this woman to get remarried. Amar Los Rabbi Shmuel says, "Shtok b'ni, shtok." Stop here. Don't add another word. Why? Because Hol v'yotza dor beheter yotza. What does that mean? That once the shliach testifies Fanei Nechtam, and Bezdin accepts the testimony of the shliach, that upgrades the status of the shliach to tu'edim. And after Baal comes to be ma'arer and to claim that the signatures on the get were counterfeit, were mezuyaf, then it's the word of the Baal against the tu'edim of the shliach. And therefore, this get was proclaimed and ruled by the Bezdin to be kosher. And we're not going to accept the Baal's iru on a get that's already been established as kosher. And just like the Chacham established the takana that in Chutzars, when the Shliach says Fanei Nechtam, then the iru of the Baal is batal and mevutal, it doesn't register. So too in Eretz Yisrael, where the Shliach is not required to testify Fanei Nechtam, if he went ahead and did so, his amira is accepted by Bezdin as if there were an absolute reliable kiyum get, and therefore the Baal cannot create a chash ziyuf on this get. Now the Gemara was crystal clear in its understanding that Rabbi Eloi was not arguing against his Rebbe. He thought that Rabbi Shmuel was telling this Adam, this Shliach, that he's required to say Fanei Nechtam when he brought the get from Kfar Sisai. That's why he asked the kasha. So the Gemara asks, "Iu nami shel tizdakik li'edim ka'amalei." Didn't Rabbi Shmuel just say to the man that although he's not required to testify Fanei Nechtam, he added, Rabbi Shmuel, in his response to this man, the three words, Shel tizakek li'edim. What does it mean, Shel tizakek li'edim? That she shouldn't require edim in event that her husband is ma'ar on the get, and she has to run around to be mekayim the get with two edim. Rabbi Eloi was outside the room, and he didn't hear the whole response from beginning to end of Rabbi Shmuel to that person. He only heard part of it. He heard that Rabbi Shmuel said that he, meaning that man, as a shliach, should be required to say Fanei Nechtam. No. That's not what Rabbi Shmuel said. Rabbi Shmuel said that this is a good thing for the woman. It's a tovas ha'isha that you, my friend, should be made Fanei Nechtam. So therefore, Rabbi Shmuel held that this person should really be very careful, and as a shliach, he should be meticulous about testifying Fanei Nechtam for the benefit of the isha. But since Rabbi Eloi didn't hear that, he thought that all Rabbi Shmuel was telling him that in regard to Kfar Sisai, it has the status of chutzah. So mikar din, you have a requirement for Fanei Nechtam. Shalchle Rav Yasser Rav Chizda. Rav Yasser was in Eretz Yisrael, and he sent the following ruling to Rav Chizda in Bavel: Gittin aboy misham lekan. Gittin that are coming from your area, meaning Rav Chizda in Bavel, to my area, Rav Yasser in Eretz Yisrael. Ein tzarich lomer fanei nechta fanei nechta. What does that mean? It means that once Bavel was given the status of Eretz Yisrael, then even Gittin that are coming from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, there's no requirement of fanei nechta and fanei nechta. But wait a second. That's going to solve the problem of Lishma, because in Bavel, as we saw in Rav, the Bnei Yeshivas were Bekiyim in Lishma. But it's not going to solve your problem when you're taking a get from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael of Shayos Mitzuyas and requiring Kiyum. Lema Kasavel Fishem Bekiyim Lishma Vani Kmiri, but V'Tizbrav HaRabba Islay de Rava. We've already established and reiterated this many times that Rabba accepted Rava, and we need a Kiyum Aget because Ein Shayos Mitzuyos. Ella says the Gemara L'Kuli Alma Be'ina L'Kaima. Even Rabba agrees to Rava that you need Kiyum. The Kevanika Rabbim the Salki V'Nachte Mishkach Shkichi. But there are many Jews who come to Eretz Yisrael and then go back to Bavel, and therefore we have a shchichi situation. What's shchichi mean? Mitzuyim anoshim l'kaimis haget. And therefore, since we have an availability of people to mekayim the get, there's no need for fanei nechtam. And all this comes from Rav Yosef. Now, Rav Yosef was wondering whether or not this Rav Yosef is really a Talmid Chacham. Can we rely on him for his ruling with regard to Gittin? Omer Rav Yosef, man label under Rav Yosef bar Samchu. I don't know that Rav Yosef is a reliable person to paskin halacha in Gittin. Anybody know this Rav Yosef? It's not like today, you have the pictures of the Gedolim, the cards. The Od, and furthermore, it was Rav Yasar who violated a din, and that seems to indicate that he was not a great Talmud Chacham. What was the din that he violated? He sent a message to Rabbi Yehuda because Rav Yasar in Eretz Yisrael was very upset that the Babylonian Jews were not coming on Aliyah. So Rav Yasser was the president of Nefesh B'Nefesh in his time. And Rabbi Yehuda was in Bavel, so he sent a message to Rabbi Yehuda with Tolchacha, with very stark castigation and words of rebuke against the Babylonian Jews. And here's what he wrote on a piece of paper. In those days, they wrote it on cloth. And cloth needs what's called sirtut. He wrote that B'nei Adam ha'olam misham lekan, those who come from Bavel to study in Eretz Yisrael, and they leave behind them their wives and their children, and they come to study in Eretz Yisrael for long periods of time, they are fulfilling what Yoel in his prophecy wrote in the 4th chapter of Yoel, Vayitnu ayeled bizona vayalda mocho b'yayin vayishtu. Now, Yoel in this nevuah is speaking about the Goyim and what they did to the Jews. However, Rav Yasser borrowed this pasuk in a totally different context and used it with his insight to apply a rebuke to the Anshe Talmidei Bavel who came to Eretz Yisrael, and they left behind them their wives. Their wives were like agunos. They weren't mekayim the mitzvahs of Periva Rivya, and they should have stayed behind with their children, and they could have had more children and be mekayim the mitzvah of Periva Rivya on the greatest level. And therefore, he compared them to those who sell their children away for znus, or you sell your daughter for yayin. In other words, you're making it's kal beineim, their family. Now, okay, that means that Rabbi Yasser was apparently a scholar if he was able to know a pasuk in Yoel and reinterpret it and apply it in his context. However, he made one mistake. Pasuk below sirtut. When he wrote this pasuk down on a cloth, he didn't do sirtut. I don't know the English word for sirtut, but the lines, the indented lines in the cloth, so that you separate one line from another. And Omar of Yitzchak Shtayim Kosvim Shloshein Kosvim. However, although you're allowed to write 2 letters from Kisvei HaKodesh on a cloth without sirtut, but 3 words, did I say letters? I meant to say words. But 3 words is the absolute minimum requirement that you have to write a pesirtut. Umasnisa Tana, the Brisa went a step further, a little bit more lenient, and said Shalosh Kosvin, even 3 words you're allowed to write without sirtut, aval arba, but 4 words ain't Kosvin. So Rav Yosef wrote a whole bunch of words from Yoel, from Sefer Yoel, a pasuk, and he left out sirtut. Apparently, he's not a bar samcha. He must be, again, I don't know, the Gemara doesn't use this term. I'm going to be dramatic, but he must be an Amoritz. So now you're going to tell me that he's the one who's going to paskin that when you bring a get from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, you don't need funny neftav. We're not going to accept his opinion. Abai says to Rav Yosef, Hadu kol delo yoda hadu Rav Yitzchak lav gavarabahu. Does the very fact that you don't know this halacha of Rav Yitzchak requiring sirtut, that automatically disqualifies yourself for the title of an Adam Gadol. Okay, if you want to know a halacha that's based on logic, we don't mean human logic and secular logic, we're talking about halachic logic, then you're right. Then you can say, well, he's not an Adam Gadol if he doesn't understand the logic of the Torah, the ways of the Torah, the drachel of the Torah, the nesivas HaTorah, etc., etc. But that halacha of Rav Yitzchak, Gemara, this is not a product of some sort of a logical analysis. This is a matter of Kabbalah. Either you had the Kabbalah from your Rebbeim or you didn't have Kabbalah. Rav Eviasar did not have a Kabbalah from his Rebbeim requiring sirtut in a cloth that has 4 or 3 words to it. So don't disqualify him as an Adam Gadol. And furthermore, Rabbi Yosser who the askim morel yodeh. Well, now we're going to see in the parsha of Pilegesh Begiva that it was Rabbi Yosser who understood the parsha in a way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself confirmed Rabbi Yosser. He must have been a Gavara. He must be a Gavara. The Chsiv in the parsha of Pilegesh Begiva, it says Vatizne Olav Pilagsha. But we don't take that literally, but in any event, she ran away. And she ran to her father's house. And the question is, what compelled her to run away? Rabbi Yosef Amar, this Pilegesh, a Pilegesh in this context here is a kind of a maidservant. And she services in the house. And Rabbi Yosef says, Zvuv Motzala, the Balbayis saw a fly stuck in a bowl. Like she served him a bowl of porridge and there was a fly in the porridge. Sounds like the Saramashkim Sarof. Rabbi Yonasan Amar Nima Motzala. We'll soon see what that means, but literally there was a hair that he found. Ashkechei Rav Yosef Rav Yosef encountered Eliyahu Hanavi. Amalei, Micah Ovid HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's God busy with? What sug is he learning up in Shamayim? Amalei Eliyahu tells him, Asik b'Pilegesh Begiva. Our parsha, right? Micah Omar. What is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's understanding? Why did she run away? Amalei Eliyahu says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu declared Av Yosef b'ni Kachu Omer. My son Av Yosef says that she ran away because they caught her with a fly. And Yonasan b'ni Kachu Omer that they caught her with a hair. Amalei Rabbi Yosef Chas v'Shalom. How can you tell me such a thing? Mumika Sveika Kamishmaya? Are you telling me that HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself doesn't know the answer to this question? Why she ran away? And he was vacillating between these two opinions. He didn't know if it was a hare or it was a fly. Fly, hare, hare, fly. Amalei Elio says, Elu ve'elu divrei l'kimchaim. It's both are true. There was a fly and there was a hare. And therefore both you and Rabbi Yonasan are correct. Zvuv matzah, initially he found a fly. Okay, look, a fly can fly into a porridge and get stuck in a porridge. Lo hikpid, he didn't want to throw her away or punish her. But then nema matzah v'hikpid. With a hare, she was careless. And we'll soon see what this hare is all about. So in any event, what Abai is pointing out to Rav Yosef is the very fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed to Rav Yosef that his shot in the pasuk was correct. It must be that he's an Adam Gadol. And now the Gemara wants to know, what is this hare all about? Rav Yudas Vuv Bekara. The Balabayas of this Pilegesh found a Zvuv in the bowl. But V'nima Ba'oso Makom. Rav Yosef's Nima, which means a nima is a hair, is a pubic hair. And apparently in those days, women would shave their pubic hairs because it could be dangerous for the Baal that his organ might get caught up and wrapped around in a hair, and that could cause him to be a krus. So the Gemara says the following: Zuz zvuv mi usa. The Balabais was makpid on the zvuv because it's very repulsive, very disgusting. Who would eat something with a fly in it? V'nema, but that's already a different level. That's sarkanta. If she was careless and she didn't take off that hair, then that could cause him a danger of becoming krushiv. And that's why he was makpid with regard to the name. He could diamri another version of it, idi bekara. It's really a hair in the bowl. Zvuv unsa, but a zvuv, okay, what can you do? It's almost impossible to keep away the flies. But the name of pshiusa, but apparently with regard to her hairs, she'd be very careful, to tie around her hairs that no hair should fall into the bowl. And now we have a little bit of an agadata. Rav Chizal, Yolam al yatil adam ema yisera b'soch beisa shrei pilegesh begiva hitil baila ema yisera. The Balabayas instilled fear of the Lord in the heart of this pilegesh. And therefore, as a result, she ran away from her Balabayas to the Beis Aviyah. And when she came back and she had to stay overnight in Giva, which is in Shevet Binyamin's area, there she was raped by the members of Anshe Giva. And that caused the whole terrible Pilegesh Begiva incident in which thousands upon thousands of people were killed. Bipila Kamar Vavos V'Yisrael. So all this is because she was so afraid of her Balabayas that she ran away. When she came back, etc., etc. This Gila Rayas means that if a woman is afraid of her husband, in a case where, for whatever reason, she wasn't toveles b'mikvah, maybe it was freezing cold, and she didn't break the ice, so she's afraid to tell her husband that she was not toveles because she's really afraid of her husband. And then he had a relationship with her when she was in Nida. And Shvichas Dam is the case of Pilegesh Begiva, that a woman runs away from her husband because she's so afraid of her husband. And you know what? She could fall and die. Bil Shabbos is because a woman who did not manage to cook all her food before Shabbos, or she didn't light her Ner Shabbos before Shabbos, she's afraid of her husband. So she goes in and cooks on Shabbos. She lights the candle on Shabbos. Amar Rabbi Bar Chana, Hadi Ami Rabbanan Shlosh Dvarim Tzarech Omer L'Sof Beis On L'Sof Beis Erev Shabbos Mechashechi Sarti Rabti Zlikas Haner Tzarech on Daf Zayin L'Meimah B'Nichusa. Make sure that you say it b'nachas ki hechi d'lekablu minei, so the bnei bayis will listen to what you have to say. Amar of Ashi Anolo Shmiliha. I didn't hear the statement of Rabbi Bar Bachana that these Isartim Rabti should be said b'nichusa v'kayamte misfar, but I was mekayim it logically. Okay, we're up to Amar Rabbi Avo and Amir Tzashem. That's where we'll pick it up tomorrow at 7:50. Wish you a great day.